Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly. Our topics this week: Sprint gets the nation's attention, Steve Rose gets Congressman Yoder's attention, and Jackson County government is about to get ours, plus roast and toast. We start with our Newsmaker segment, and as I mentioned, focus on Jackson County government, a frequent source of news in recent weeks. The sheriff resigned. There are continuing battles between the legislature and the county executive. There's the continuing debate about what to do with the county jail. And there's talk of term limits and changing the county charter. To talk about those issues and more is veteran legislator Crystal Williams, elected at large from the 2nd District. Crystal, welcome to Ruckus. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
You're in your 2nd term on the county legislature, originally elected in 2010 and again in 2014. You're running for election this August, and you hope again this November.
I hope so, yes.
So you've been in Jackson County government for a while, for about 8 years, so you've seen what's going on there from the inside. What do you see as the issue that most needs to be resolved right now at Jackson County government? And I know there are many, but
there are many. But I'm going to kind of I would like to look at it more globally.
All right.
And one of the things that I've said for some time is that I think that we need a cultural adjustment at Jackson County. I think that, as my colleague Tony Miller has put at one point, there have been veterans who've been around a long time that they kind of look at Jackson County government as transactional in nature. There's a pretty well entrenched kind of patronage, old school idea there. And I think that it lacks transparency, and I think that's a real problem.
Well, there's talk of the need for a new charter.
I was one of the first people that brought that up.
And there is a possibility of putting it on the ballot this August, and you think that's too soon?
It's too soon. For one thing, I think we should probably have a charter commission. If we wanted to make a couple of changes, for instance, I agree that the combat program should be moved back into the prosecutor's office. That's a pretty simple fix.
That one fights drugs, right?
Yes, yeah. And that's where it started. It moved over sometime
back when Mike Sanders was prosecuting
Mike
attorney.
moved it. No, it actually started before Mike.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Mike moved it to the executive's office with him. There's a precedence for it being under the prosecutor, and I think that's a better home for it.
Are you in favor of term limits as are being talked about?
Here's the way I feel about term limits. I think term limits destroyed Jefferson City. However, after the many years of battling the entrenched interests at Jackson County, if I had to vote for them, I would. Probably if I could get some other things. I am not inclined to vote for pay raises for the elected officials in Jackson County, and that's also in these charter proposals.
It'd be a pretty hefty pay raise, as I understand it, what's being proposed to be paid the same as the city council members get.
It does a few things. I mean, I think it drops the county executive's pay, which I think is actually, it's a pretty blatant smack at the county executive. And then it raises the pay of the sheriff and the prosecutor, and then raises the pay of the legislators a bit.
While you've been on the legislature, Mike Sanders was the county executive, and you've served under the Frank White administration. Are there dramatic differences?
I wish there were more dramatic differences. I mean, I've actually told Frank recently that I thought he kept too many people from the previous administration in place. Some of them are fabulous, some of them are not. I think he could have made bigger changes. I was the first woman chair of the Jackson County legislature, and I was actually there when Mike announced that he was leaving about, I don't know, right as I was taking the chairmanship. And I think that it's kind of funny because I was told that I would never be the chair by some of my colleagues until there was a crisis.
Until you were the chair.
Yes, until there was a crisis looming, and then suddenly I was the chair.
For as long as I can recall, and I've been in the Kansas City area a long time, the Jackson County Jail has been a concern, an issue. Is there any hope that's going to be resolved fairly soon?
Absolutely.
And in what way?
Well, there's a task force that's still meeting. I wasn't necessarily in support of that task force because I was there when we ordered an audit of the jail. There's been other studies. It's pretty clear to most people that that jail needs to be replaced. Security reasons alone, that the whole way that it's built is outmoded, but it's a very big investment. There is movement right now toward a master plan. There's going to be conversations with legislators coming up in the next couple of weeks about that master plan. By the end of the year, I think we're going to have a very good idea of what we're going to do.
Rebuilt, not refurbished.
It's going to need to be rebuilt because, you know, jails are not like 8 stories anymore.
I can recall incidents back in the days of George Lear, the first county executive, taking place at the jail.
Yeah.
Got to stop it there. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you very much.
That is Jackson County Legislator Krista Williams. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Sean Saving is a labor activist, part of the Heartland Labor Forum at KKFI Radio. Patrick Toohey is Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute, a free market think tank. Jamika Kendricks is an educator and education activist. And Crosby Kemper III is Executive Director of the Kansas City Library System and the host of KCPT's Meet the Past and Centropolis programs. Good to see all of you again. Thanks very much for coming in. A lot of stuff to talk about. Generally speaking, local news reporters are not generally speaking about Jackson County government. They spend more time on the city council and the mayor. In recent weeks, however, we've seen an upsurge in county coverage, maybe because the sheriff resigned after news of his affair with a former co-worker, or maybe because the county and the teleprompter are not moving anywhere, or because the county executive Frank White and the 9-member legislature appear increasingly at odds, or maybe because the retiring legislator calls for a change in the county charter, including a raise for legislators, ethic reforms, and the imposition of term limits. Term limits are seen by many as a cure-all for what ails politics. Would term limits cure Jackson County's problems, Jamika?
I don't think so. When I was thinking about this question, I read a whole lot about what the media has reported about what's going on with Jackson County, but I wanted to look at something different because I think the piece that we are often missing is the engagement piece and actually allowing our voters to have a voice. And so when I was looking at when our charter was initially changed back in 1970, and I looked at that process, it was a big process, and there were over 60,000 voters who did signatures to petition the court to create a commission. The commission was created, and it had 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans. And then they were responsible for establishing 11 task force with over 200 volunteers, hosting dozens of hearings for public to be able to have some input on what the government would look like, what was working, what was not working, and also interviewing 35 witnesses, including national experts on local and county government and past and present elected officials. And I think that kind of engagement and thought around what our government should look like could fix the ills, because we have to identify them and address them. Doing just one legislator who's retiring who says, I think these are some quick fixes, I don't think that does it.
So were you saying term limits are not the answer?
I answered it at the very beginning.
Engagement
I said
is
no.
the answer. Well, you
I
answered
got
it.
to no, and then I had to get in the rest.
In some detail, I would say. Patrick,
Yes.
do you see term limits as something that would assist Jackson County's recovery?
I think term limits are necessary but not sufficient. I think what we need to do is make sure that new blood is coming in, examining what their predecessors did, but ultimately without transparency, without accountability, any reform is wasteful, frankly.
Sean?
Yeah, I think that's the issue goes back to what Jamika said. It's a much bigger problem. You can make a few fixes here, but if the people of the county aren't engaged and aren't aware of what's going on at the county, it's not going to matter. And right now our local news coverage of county affairs is basically limited to the latest scandal and everything, all the details where all the devil is, nobody knows about.
Crosby, you had quite a tirade about the county a few weeks ago on this program. I take it your views have not changed much?
And I've made the front page of the Star and the editorial in the Star talking about the Plaza tax assessment, which is dramatically underassessed, and the county caved on that. I wrote a letter. The real problem is we're not going to get any engagement because nobody cares. I wrote a letter about this to the Civic Council. They said, we're not interested in this. We have other priorities. The chamber, Joe Reardon was, because he said when he was the head of unified government, he had the same problem in KCK. And then he established a real estate committee in which I was a member and 40 developers and development lawyers were members. We're not going to change anything. So I had a meeting with Ed Stoll, the chief administrative officer, with Scott Burnett, chair of the legislature, and the assessor, and John Ebert, their $350,000 a year consultant. And they told me that John Ebert said, you know, there may be as much as $5 billion of under or unassessed what they call undiscovered property in Jackson County, and nobody's interested.
You could buy 10 jails for that.
No kidding. Exactly. You could pay for the jail, you could pay for the assessment, you could pay for just about anything. Early childhood education.
We're going to have a new sheriff after Mike Sharp resigned when news of his affair with a co-worker became public. There's talk, and I guess it is the fact, that Daryl Forty, the former police chief in Kansas City, has applied for the sheriff's job. Would he be a strong candidate in your opinion?
I like Chief Forte as chief of Kansas City Police, and so I think he's a strong candidate, but I don't know who else is in the pool, and I think that we need to make sure that we're getting the best for that position.
Patrick, there are elections this fall. It looks like Frank White has a very good chance of being elected to another term as county executive. With him in that office, is there much likelihood of change?
Probably not. I think the problem we run into in a representative democracy is we have charming candidates who may not be up to the task. That's not unique to Jackson County, but we need, I think, a commission. We need more engagement. We need more transparency so we know what's going on. We can't rest on a particular charismatic person to come in and save the day.
How can engagement be engendered? How do you do that?
Well, that's a really good question because
that's really why I asked it.
People might say we don't know what's going on because it's not being reported. I think the Star would be probably correct to say, well, we're not reporting it because no one's reading it. So I don't know, and maybe it takes scandal like this to light the fire, and maybe it takes engagement, but I don't know how.
It takes the Democratic Party in Kansas City to be embarrassed by this, because the Democratic clubs control the elections to the Jackson County legislature, and they have put up people who have put up with this, and they helped put up Frank White, and we have a major problem there, and they should be embarrassed.
I think blaming the Democrats is unfair. I think blaming that party is unfair because each of us has a responsibility to look at what's happening in our government and to actually engage if we choose to. Now, we can say that, but we also have organizations that are out there that are solely focused on engagement. Let's engage them. If we're feeling like what's happening now is wrong, we have an opportunity to step up.
Well, we're through engaging about this topic because it's time to move on to the next one. There are many questions about the impact of the planned $26 billion merger between Sprint of Overland Park and T-Mobile of Bellevue, Washington. The telecom deal announced last weekend has caused concern for the thousands of Sprint employees and for civic and business leaders throughout the metro area. T-Mobile will be in charge. Its CEO, John Laguerre, will run the show, and the merged company's headquarters will be in Bellevue. The announced merger wasn't much of a surprise. It's been talked about for years. The merger is not yet a done deal. Federal approval is required, and that is not guaranteed. But aside from the possibility that the Sprint Center will need a new name, what are some of the other implications of this potential deal? Let's start with Crosby.
Well, I think there's a large chance that this deal won't go through, but whether it goes through or not, Sprint in the long run has indicated it's going to go away. I think that we know it will. They have huge debt. They have a declining customer base, and they're going to go away along with the $1 billion in tax subsidies they got from us. My grandfather was the chairman of the board of Sprint at one point. His portrait used to hang there in the boardroom.
Was it United Telecom?
It was United Telecom, United Telephone before that. He brought them from Abilene. He was part of the civic group that brought them from Abilene. And so it's a sad thing for Kansas City. This has been a rock of Kansas City's political, civic, and business culture over the years. And I'm afraid the actual truth of this is they are gone. It's just a question of when.
But Sprint reported a profit this year, first time in 11 years.
Mm-hmm. And there's some good news there, but you'll notice the stock hasn't done all that well.
Why, Jamika, does Sprint have trouble succeeding? I like its advertising campaigns it runs on television.
They are nice.
And it seems like the prices are more than competitive with the other services.
I don't think it's just an issue with Sprint. I think we are seeing Sprint being hit the hardest right now, but I think it's an issue with the telecommunications industry. And so when we're looking at the telecommunications industry, I think of Comcast, AT&T, Verizon. All of them are doing layoffs, and significant layoffs. And with Verizon, for example, they closed down since 2012. They closed down 11 call centers, and that affected 10,000 jobs. And now they're looking to close down 3 more, which is going to, or 4 more, which is going to affect 3,000 jobs. And so across the telecommunications industry, because the market is becoming saturated, because data and voice and messaging are no longer like the core, we're using that less and less, and data is expensive. And so what we're using most is data. And so I think it's an issue of these companies being able to reorganize themselves or redefine themselves to move with the current market, because it's no longer just about telecommunications.
Well, Patrick, Sprint and Johnson County have survived other cutbacks and layoffs. Is there reason to be desperately concerned now about this possible change?
Well, you know, Crosby mentioned about the huge amount of investment that taxpayers in Johnson County put into the Sprint campus. I would like this to be a lesson to civic leaders that this is a particularly competitive industry. You know, tomorrow's leader may not be around today. And so the idea that we still fall over ourselves to offer all sorts of incentives to Cerners, to Amazons, to Google Fibers, and to Sprints, this should be like, wait a minute, let's let the market decide what works, and let's not put taxpayers stuck with the bill.
Sean Marcello-Cloret, who is the head of Sprint, says the two companies need each other. That's why this merger has taken place. Does that make sense?
Oh, the companies probably do. The workers don't need it. I mean, there's anybody who tells you that the Sprint's HQ2 will survive, and you know, come on. What's going to happen is that the high-end jobs that are at that position, that location, are going to go away because the headquarters are in Bellevue, and they said, oh, there's going to be more jobs. There's going to be more jobs. Yeah, retail centers. They're talking about expansion of $10 an hour jobs. Woo, big deal. So in net, there may be more jobs in the combined T-Mobile Sprint than there are now, but Kansas City's not going to benefit from that.
But they actually said that they agreed that they would actually be losing 20,000 U.S. jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more like
they're basing the projections on actual job creation on the success of a G5 network.
Oh, yeah.
And so if that network is not as successful as they expect it to be, or they're not as competitive with that as they expect it to be, we won't have a net
Mike,
gain.
couldn't we give the headquarters building to Amazon?
No, possibly.
Yes, absolutely.
Just a thought. You know?
The companies say that this merger will reduce costs for consumers. Is that usually what happens when two companies merge?
No, you know, it's ultimately anti-competitive. But on the other hand, the technology in the world is changing so much that it may be meaningless.
And these people are promising 5G in the near future.
Yes, but Verizon's working on that too.
Okay. Well, they spend all their time cutting debt.
Kansas City Star columnist Steve Rose may be thinking about a new career as a political consultant. In a recent column, Steve outlines how to win the Democratic primary in Kansas' 3rd District and then overcome 4-term incumbent Congressman Kevin Yoder in November. In brief, Steve suggests one of the 7 Democratic hopefuls run like a young Bernie Sanders Democratic socialist in the primary, emphasize such things as hiking the minimum wage, single-payer health care, a ban on assault weapons, and support for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. After capturing the primary, Steve then tells the successful liberal Democrat to quickly turn moderate. Spend your time and advertising budget lumping Republican Yoder and President Trump together. Yoder and Trump are one. And that, Steve thinks, is the way to victory. First question, is Mr. Rose on the way to replacing Karl Rove? And we'll start with Patrick.
No, I think Steve would be wise to keep his day job. The idea of running to the extreme in the primary and then running to the middle in the general election isn't political advice, it's cliche. And frankly, if you want to appeal to the hardcore left in Johnson County, you should probably do it by going door to door because it'll take you an afternoon. Johnson County, recall, voted for to re-elect Governor Brownback when he was, getting the worst press.
But just barely.
So I don't know that there's much hope for anybody wanting to run against Yoder. But again, it's a long way off into the election. We will see. And I agree that Trump will play a role, but to the degree that Johnson County has a lot of people who benefited from his tax plan, it may not be a negative role.
Sean, essentially the same question.
Well, I think, I don't know about the advice to the individual candidates from Mr. Rose. I would say the thing about any Democrat who's running in a race in the Midwest or the South is to let the Democrats run, the local people run their own campaign. The DCCC needs to stay the heck out of it, provide some support, provide some money, but all they're going to do is screw it up. And they've done it time and time again. Local people know their districts. Democrats in the Midwest are not the same as Democrats on the West or the East Coast. And I think that's the real advice to have, and that's advice to the national Democrats. Let people at the local level run their own campaigns.
The irony of that, if I may say, is it seems like the Democratic National Committee hasn't learned its lesson from Bernie Sanders. They are intervening and choosing people in primaries.
They're still messing in there.
Crosby, I know you and Steve are close. What do you think of his campaign ideas?
So I think that there isn't a good candidate in the race for the Democrats at this point. They had one in Andrea Ramsey, and she was Me Too'd out of the race. I think actually the more interesting race is going to be in the 2nd district, and I think Democrats have a shot at Kevin Yoder. Hillary Clinton won the district, but there are too many registered Republicans there. I think the 2nd district is probably the district that has the greatest chance of changing.
That's in the Leavenworth area.
Yeah, Lynn Jenkins is retiring. Steve Fitzgerald's a pretty good candidate, but they're good candidates on the other side too. And I think that DNC will be pouring money into the 2nd district.
Jamika, do you think President Trump will be a benefit to Kevin Yoder or an impediment to him?
Considering where Yoder is running, I think he would be a benefit.
And you know, though, that in 2016, Hillary Clinton won Johnson County by 1 point.
I still think Trump would be a benefit.
What do you think, Patrick? An impediment or a benefit?
I think a benefit, and again, I think it's the tax cut. People may hold their nose, but when they go into the polls, Johnson County has, in large, the individuals there have benefited from the tax program that the president put in place, and they'll vote for more of it.
Well, Sean, people always say voters vote their pocketbooks, and if that's true, doesn't that help the Republican candidate?
It may. I mean, I think the details of this, of the effects of this tax cut are still rolling out. I mean, people are still trying to figure out how much did they really actually get. And the problem is the election is going to come before they really find out what a con job this tax cut was.
NAFTA may have an effect. They're going to elect a populist in Mexico who may agree to everything Donald Trump wants with NAFTA, which will have a huge negative effect in Kansas City.
What about incumbency? Is that still a benefit for a candidate to run as the person who holds the position?
I don't think incumbency is a benefit because I think in this election, even with Trump supporters, the frustration was with the system and with politics in general. And so incumbency, I don't think it's necessarily a detriment to a candidate, but I don't think it has as much value as it used to when people were looking at it like, oh, you're the incumbent, we want you back in.
Big fundraising benefit in the 3rd district.
We keep hearing a blue wave is coming, a big Democratic victory. I know you hope that's the case, but do you think it is?
First of all, no, I don't hope it's the case. I actually like it when we have where our government has to work together with both sides. But I do think that it will happen if we're looking at history.
When has it happened?
I know, we never have, but I would like for us to create that scenario.
All right,
but looking at history,
we're going to have to head on. It is time to go to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Rockettes have 30 seconds each, I say 30 seconds each, to facilitate or obviate people and events in the news. And we start with Jamika.
All right, I wrote it this time, so I'll be very quick. All right, I want to toast teachers in Arizona, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Colorado for standing together, taking to the streets, and using their collective voices to declare big business tax cuts that come at the expense of public education and public services have caused them to lose faith in our government's commitment to education. I support their fight and to hold our government accountable and to boost investments in our children's future through funding education.
Education activist.
Yes.
All right, Sean.
I want a big toast to the thousands of volunteers who have collected signatures for the last year for 2 ballot initiatives to raise the minimum wage in Missouri and to clean up the campaign finance and ethics problems in Jefferson City. Those petitions are being turned in this week, and those are going to qualify. We turned in over twice as many as we need, so hats off to all of you. Thank you very much.
Would be on the ballot in
November 2018, most likely, yeah.
Okay, and Crosby.
So I usually roast the Kansas City Star editorial board, but I want to say a nice word about the most cynical man in Kansas City, Dave Helling, who did reveal in a recent column that Kansas City has one of the highest tax rates in any city in the United States. In your next column, Dave pointed out it's also one of the most regressive, but thank you for doing that.
And Patrick.
My toast is of somebody who's become very familiar to KCPT audiences and someone that I've had an opportunity to work with and respect. A scholar, a statesman, and this month marries the Lyric Opera's own Deb Sandler. So join me in a toast, please, to the conscience of Kansas City, Crosby Kemper.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think of myself as the unconscious of Kansas City.
We're a good team.
Anyway, finally, I'm going to be a guest this Saturday on Jason Grill's radio program. It's at 4 p.m. on Talk 980. That's on the AM dial. As you know, on Ruckus, I get to ask the questions. But this weekend, Jason gets to ask, and I guess I have to answer. So it looks like I'm going to be grilled this weekend.
Ooh.
And my wedding anniversary is this Saturday, by the way. Cinco de Mayo.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
5 years. No, it's a lot longer than that. And that is Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching and good night.
Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, and by viewers like you. Thank you.